Board. Awesome. All right. So today we learned about state last class. Obviously, we're going to be state's the kind of thing that we're going to be using all the time going forward. So whatever app we are working on that day, that evening, for the most part, we're going to be doing state, unless I have to demo something that really doesn't include state, and to get the point across, maybe we don't have to update state. But for the most part, state is a really, really big part of React. There's lots of other things about React that we're going to need to cover. State is a big one. So we'll be covering that in a little bit after we go into events. We'll be going to events first, so we can capture some info and then update state with it. But agenda today, we don't have to do the exit ticket feedback. Get rid of that. I did look. The exit ticket feedback was really, really good for last class. I wish I did have it up. It really showed that slowing things down a bit, giving some more time to do things really, really worked out. So it seems like that's kind of the approach that I'm going to be taking. Try to go slower, be a little bit more meticulous, and definitely not rush through anything. I don't really like rushing. You never learn anything if I'm just rushing. Homework submissions. Homework is due on Tuesday, right? So previous Tuesday was the first homework. If you want feedback for any of the homeworks, then you need to submit it on the Tuesday. And if you submitted later than that, just reach out to Abdul to let him know. If it's week 5 and you're like, man, I really have to submit week 1 and 2, Abdul's not going to know that you did this. He's not going to be like, oh yeah, this person didn't submit on this day, and let me go back and take a look now that that spot is taken. So just reach out and say, hey, Abdul, just submitted. Could you please, just give it a once over or something like that. Don't expect much feedback at that time, because he's got, 14 new homeworks to look at, new ones to go back and look at previous submissions. Might be a bit of work. So don't expect the feedback, but that'll be Abdul's discretion if he feels like being kind, right? Abdul, you're kind. You're a nice dude. You'd do that for them, right? I would do that. Anyway, I don't want to put you on the spot. So we're going to be doing events. I'll introduce the on-click and the on-submit event. There's one more event that's really, really relevant, and it's the on-change event. But I feel like on-click and on-submit and reapplying some of the other stuff that we learned might just be enough for today. And then we'll wrap up with exit tickets today. I'm going to try to stop about, 9:45, 9:50, so everyone can fill out the exit tickets, give you some time. I'm just muting everyone. Did I just mute everybody? Yeah, mute all, right? Except myself. Okay, so learning objectives. Adding a synthetic event. Windows. There are events that we can add, and React creates a synthetic event that's kind of tied to the actual event itself. If you ever worked with just plain old JavaScript and events or jQuery, actually, just hands up, how many have worked with jQuery? All right, quite a few. Do you still work with jQuery? Is it part of your job? All right, just a handful. All right, unfortunately, yeah. There's always the debate in the JavaScript class or even in the software engineering class whether we should teach jQuery, and things like React and Vue are the new way of doing things. But jQuery is still super popular, and there's so many sites out there that use it that it's hard to just negate we shouldn't teach it anymore. It's probably the quickest way for anyone who doesn't know anything to get up to speed with building something out, right? React should be the preferred, but that requires a lot of overhead in understanding JavaScript in general. Okay, then we'll create event handlers to handle those events, right? It's just like creating a method or a function that gets called when the event gets triggered. We'll discuss within the event itself, there's things like prevent defaults, and this is a method. Oop. And stop propagation is a method. Stop propagation isn't something I use too often, but it is part of the homework. There's one thing in the homework that's like, make sure to add stop propagation. And I don't want you to be like, what is this? I didn't learn this. So I'll demo what it's doing so you get an idea of the propagation of events. But that's not necessarily a React thing. That's just a JavaScript thing, how events can be heard by parent level elements that are also listening for the same event. If they have an on-click event, the thing can kind of go up to the parent element. Then we'll review state a little bit, set state, we'll do set state, and then talk about the time delay when updating state also. So there's a new callback, which we didn't introduce the last time, and I'll introduce it this time so you can see why state is so important, okay? Okay, so event handle, okay. W3 schools, if you're ever looking for like, I think everyone on this call has gone to W3 schools at some point in time. Some sort of research has led you to, or question on the great Google machine has been like, how do I yada yada, boom, W3 schools. It's almost like the first place I go to. I like it because it's the dumbed down version of like an MDN doc. Like I look at MDN sometimes and I'm like a robot. Like I got to be a robot to understand it all. So coming to W3 schools, I really just get like, how do I use the thing? Give me an example, test it. Oh, awesome. Now I go work with it, right? I don't need to read like the essay as to why this thing was invented and the backstory. So I always go here. And so we're going to be adding events. I might come back, kind of reference this every once in a while, but I like to just code. So I think we're just going to code. So I'm going to demo. So what I wanted to do today is, once again, I'll Slack out the code. If you want to code along, you code along. If you don't, you watch. I'm going to demo adding events, and then I'm going to do an official code along with adding events to the color switcher. And I have switched out the color switcher and the to-do list to be one big component. Because as child components, we have to kind of lift state up, and I don't really want to go into that right now. I'd prefer like we just understand what events are doing. Okay, so I'm going to go to this little counter thing here, and I'll share out the link. Had a scare earlier, maybe like 7 o'clock. Code Sandbox was freaking out. I don't know if anybody was working with it like an hour ago, and it just wasn't rendering anything. And I thought, man, this is going to be really, really, it's not going to be good for class. But there's always other options. So I have this tiny little cheesy little counter, right? And all the I'll just zoom in on my code here. And the counter just has, 2 buttons, don't, and this 0 to count. I have an index. I am calling app, which I've imported here. So let's go to the app. And here's the thing, right? Now, it's a functional component, which means it doesn't have state. We didn't add state to it. And I am going to add some events. Well, most basic straight out thing that we could do here is these click events. So let's just think like I click on plus, count goes up 1. Click on minus, count goes down 1. Really basic, right? How do we add these events? So they are input boxes, right? These are just inputs, not buttons, but inputs that have a type of button. And I've just given them this text here. And so here, I'm going to add the event. So I'm just going to say on click. That's how you add an event. Equals, and in double curly braces, we need to reference what we want. Now, it's erroring out because there's nothing inside of here. And it, as React is running, or just kind of normal JavaScript is probably like, hey, I want to like make sure that this thing has something, make sure that that something is working or there. It's not there. So we have this issue. So I'm going to put in a placeholder and we'll create the supporting function right after we do it. So I'm going to say handle click. Okay. Now, once again, now the error changed, right? This error changed from one error to another error. I also think what's important is seeing the errors. What you're going to come across time and time again are all these errors, and you're going to maybe get lost. I was helping Meg just before, right? We were looking at some of the issues that she was having with just trying to implement the city pics, right? The one with the city pictures, right? And I could see already, I saw the error, and it was something like a CORS error. Megan thought it was CORS was the error, but it's not CORS. It's Code Sandbox just flipping out. So knowing how to track the errors is going to save you tons of time, okay? And if you do encounter these errors, feel free to, Slack us the code. I didn't see it come in. Megan, I would have responded sooner. I just didn't see yours come in, but I definitely would have responded sooner. It's always like a little puzzle. How do I fix the thing, right? You can fix it. I want to fix it. Just didn't have time to fix it anyway. So I have handle click. Now I'm going to create the supporting function, and I'm going to say, hey, function. A couple of ways you could do this. We could create a const as a function or just do function. So let's do this. I will do const handle click is equal to, and I'm going to make this a fat arrow. Okay? Everything is back to normal. Nothing really happened, right? Fat arrow, back to normal. Now, what I always do, and I always suggest, and I call this like baby steps. The baby steps to working with this stuff at the very beginning is like console log, handle click has been clicked, right? Whatever you want to do. Clicked, I don't care. Make sure that the thing has been clicked, okay? Now, in our code sandbox here, let's see why I don't see it up here. Should be a little button here for me to like open it up in a new pane, but I don't see why that's not there. So I'm just going to go down here, get rid of the error messages, move this up a little bit. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to click on the button, right? What did I do? The plus? Oh, what's this? Oh, see that cross origin thing? Maybe that was it, right? Cross origin, React isn't a, all right, yeah, right? So I can already see console loggy, which is my bad, right? So look at the error. Console log is not a function. That's what's tripping it up. So I get rid of that. Clear out my errors. I always clear out my errors, so I'm starting from scratch. I go back to the button, and handle click has been clicked. Easy enough. New like rocket science there, right? I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do the same thing, like on click is equal to. Now, they are two different buttons, and they are going to do two different things. So maybe handle click for both of them. I probably want to create two separate functions that are going to work. So maybe this is handle click add, and I'll call this handle click subtract, something like that. So I'll just go back up here and say add, and then I'll just create, I'll just copy and paste this really. Handle click subtract. We're back, right? And then I'll say handle click sub and handle click add. They both been clicked. Clear this. Handle click add, handle click sub have been clicked. Okay. We could also elicit values from these particular buttons. There is a value. I can say if equal equals, +1, do the thing. We could. I want to show more of the clicks in adding the clicks here. Okay. So adding click events, really not too hard, right? But if I wanted to keep track or add values to the counter, right? Here's count. And count is really just here, right? It's being set as a default of 0. So I'm going to set it up so that when I do this ultimate conversion to a class base, so I can use state, I want you to see the 3 things that would need to be set. Okay, and the three things are going to be that I need to add a render method, that I need to change props to this dot props. So I need a props here in order to do that. And I have to kind of refactor my methods just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go to index and just pass down. Let's do count is equal to, I don't know, 0. All right, I'll just say 0. Okay, I'll go to app, and in count, if I do props dot count, I hate when that happens. If I do props, it's not going to let me do this. Let me see. Yeah, okay, here we go. Props dot count. It is. All right. What's the issue here? Does anyone know what's happening? Why this is happening? Anyone want to jump in and help me out fix this?
You didn't put props as a parameter for the function.
Okay, so let's get the props in there. Oh, what's happening now? Props. Oh, because something. Oh, because here. See this? This thing got added. I clicked on that before, and it did this other thing too. But we should get that. I'm going to take away props because I want to validate that assumption, right? I'm getting this, and it's taking us to props. Before it was taking me to some other thing that was imported. So props. So just know, if you're going to reference props, you need a placeholder for props within a functional component. In a class-based component, you do not need a placeholder. There's really no way to put the placeholder there. It's just kind of passed under the hood. But in a functional component, we need to do that. All right. We have our functional component. I have props.count. We see it. And now I want to update that. Right? And I want that to be reflected here every time we do it. Now, we know that we have props. Props is being passed down. It looks like props.count is here. So I may make the assumption, like, I'm new to React. Hey, what if I just did like props.count plus equals 1? All right, I don't know. Let me try. Well, nothing really happens, right? What if I tried to console log, props.count, and let's just see, props.count. Let's make sure that this thing, console is clear. Oh, yeah, so it's giving me an error, right? It's like, cannot assign to a read-only property count, of an object. Right? It's kind of weird. Like, you would assume it, I mean, I could reassign it, I could do something, but it's not allowing me to do that. I'm going to just, make sure that props works, but this is just part of troubleshooting. I'm going to make sure that there's a prop here. Still not allowing me to do it, right? Still not. I cannot read. So this is not allowing me to do it. I'm not even getting to this. So what I would do, just kind of flip it. Put it there. Click on it. Still going to get that other one. But I see that it is an object, and I see that it has a count inside of it. So theoretically, I should be able to, like, grab the thing and update the thing, right? You cannot mutate props. Once props have been passed to you, props is what props was when it was passed, and you do not change props. You change state, but you do not change props. So props becomes this unmutable thing, and React will let you know that it's unmutable, right? So if you saw this, you might be like, cannot assign read-only property count. Like, okay, I'm just going to base it on the fact that Joe told me I can't update it, right? Can't reassign it, can't do anything. Doesn't matter. What if I was just like, I don't know, is equal to 2? Am I going to get the same error? Yeah, same thing, can't do it. So the only option we have is to give the components a state where it's keeping track of the value. So forget about that, right? That's not going to work for us. So I need to upgrade this thing. So upgrading, here we go, upgrading a functional component to class-based requires what? Anybody tell me? What are the things that I mentioned? What do I need to do in order to upgrade this thing? Who wants to jump in?
You need to import the curly braces. I guess you don't need to do that. You need to write class the name of the class and then extends the React.component.
All right, so use the class keyword, right, to define the class. Okay, and like what you mentioned, you don't have to, but we kind of like doing that, you know, component. We'll use this in a moment. The fact that we're getting the underline there is because it's being defined but not used. And React is all about if you created a variable, you should use that variable. If you're not, get rid of it, clean up your code. What's the next thing? That's the first thing. And I can do it. I'll go and do it. Why don't we just do that? Class app extends component, right? Curly brace, and the curly brace. Oh, I actually ended the curly brace, right? Oh, but wait a second. I'm getting some other errors here, right? These other errors are coming. I'm going to just
need a render.
You need a render. I'm going to comment those out so we get to what another error really would be if these things were in here, because not every functional component that gets upgraded is going to have those methods. Yeah, so we need a render method, right? So add a render method. Okay, so I'm going to go here and say, instead of return, boom, move this over, render. Okay, render looks good. Awesome. What's the third message?
Didn't stop props.
Yeah, this dot props, right? Can't do just props. Change props to this dot props. Okay, so let's just go back, change it to this dot props. And, well, these methods are an issue, right? We knew that that was going to be an issue before because I didn't create them. So let's just pretend like I'll bring just, I'll bring them both back here. Let's just see, does it work? Oh no, doesn't work. Okay, so I don't know, it's kind of like unexpected token, handle, like, it's definitely on line 10. So easiest way to fix this is just to do this. Okay, now it takes me to handle click sub, and the easiest way to fix this is to do that. Now, what is it telling me I need to do? Can anyone, based on pivoting off of this dot props, what do you think?
Handle click at?
Yeah, this dot handle click and this dot handle sub. Okay. Once again, these were within the scope of a function accessible. Like a function has this particular scope that if you define variables or create functions, function expressions, function declarations, as long as you call the function or point to the name of the function, it works. But the minute you enter the world of a class, you don't have that same scope. It's not like I can just look through the class itself, look through the scope of the class. That doesn't work. I have to go ask the class, hey class, do you have something called handle click add? We know that it's a method, but do you have that? Or hey class, do you have something called props? So we have to actually ask the thing. So this references the app. So it'd be like apps.props. That's really what it's going to translate to. And we could actually see, once again, the idea of this, if I go to just these methods now, right? Now that I'm here in the handle click sub method, you know how I said handle click sub has been clicked. I'm just going to append the keyword of this. If I just do this and I click, let's see. Oh, what's this? Cross origin, what is this? Props is not defined. Huh, okay. I wonder where that's coming from.
Also,
oh, right here. Yeah, here we go. This, okay. Oh, I got to click on the sub. Here, let me click on the -1 anyway. Handle click sub has been clicked, and look, this is app. See that? This is app. Okay. So when we click on it, app has all these things: props, context, refs, updater, handle, click. It's got the two functions: handle, click, add, handle, click, sub. It's got props. Has all these things. Has this ref, state, which is null. We haven't defined it yet. So what I want you to see is this has context, and this points back to the thing. Okay, and that's really important when it comes to these methods. Okay, now I also want to point out that the way I wrote this method is very particular. I decided to use the fat arrow. And in the last class, when I was creating the fat arrow in the REPL and I tried to test it, I was like, I didn't really get my point across, the importance of the fat arrow in this particular context. So what I'm going to do is change this handle sub method. I'm just going to change it a little bit. I'm going to remove the fat arrow and just do this, right? Still works, right? The difference is this is kind of like, it's a method, and it's like writing a function. Like function, we can just leave out the function. Now, I'm going to make sure handle the add works, right? Click on handle add, and let me see this. Just make sure this is here, and I'll do this, and look, I get props.count, and then I get app, right? So I'm just console logging them both here, correct? All right. I'm going to do the same with handle click sub. I'm going to minus it, and it's undefined. Huh. Okay. That's weird. So I'm going to be like, all right, I don't know, maybe I got to do props. I don't know. It worked before. If I do props, then I get an error, and it's going to tell me that there is no props of undefined. Like, this was undefined, so you can't necessarily call some sort of key from an undefined thing, okay? What's happening here when it comes to these events and the context of this is that, this is important, methods, right? Methods need to be bound to the class or have access to this, to this keyword. Okay, so there's several different ways of doing something. You know, we were talking about adding state last on Tuesday. I was like, oh, you know, there's this thing called constructor, right? Constructor. Oh yeah, and then there's this thing super, right? And people have been doing this forever. Why is this doing this? Been doing this and creating, and then adding state in here like this dot state, right? This is the way you've been doing it forever, and you're going to see that everywhere. And then I said, oh, we don't really need to do all this anymore. I could just say this dot state, right? And then that worked, okay? Oh, no, not this dot state, just state. And then this worked, right? Both ways are acceptable. Anyone who doesn't really want to type a lot would go with this. And then once we move on to hooks later on, you'll see that functional components can also incorporate state as well. So there's all these new things going on. So methods here need to be bound to the class or have access to this keyword. This is where the importance of a fat arrow. And so I just want to make a note here that fat arrow functions can't hold on to the context of this. And the context of this bleeds out of it. It's like, I don't really know what this is, so I'm just going to ask. I'm going to go up to the class and ask. I'm going to go to the next scope above me and ask. Who knows what this is? Because somebody's asking for this inside, okay? That's why this works and this doesn't, because in this scope, this is kind of stuck there. There is no way to get this out of there. Let me see, are there any issues of code combines the old and new ones using state? So Megan, I was just reading your question. Are there any issues if code combines the old and new one using state? Not in the same file, but if I'm working in a repo. No, if I have two components and one is like what you just saw here and the other one has constructor super, they're going to work fine. There's no conflict between them. And if there's a third one that has a functional component with a hook inside of it, they're all going to play nice together. like React's way of being like, hey, we change it so often and so fast that to ask you not to write it in 5 different ways and like to update your code would be insane for developers, okay? That was a big thing with Angular. Anyone who's worked with Angular, has anyone worked with, I know some of you worked with Angular 1 and then Angular 2. Has anyone worked with both? I thought somebody worked with Angular, but Angular 1, I worked with Angular 1 and then Angular 2 came out and it was a different rewrite altogether. You couldn't write an Angular 1, like all your code in Angular 1 would have broken in Angular 2, right? Is that right, John?
So, yeah, that's right. So line 26, where you name the class name app, does that have any relevance to what you just showed here with the handle click sub not like being out of scope pretty much?
Oh no, this is just a class name. It has nothing. This is just like HTML and CSS. So line 26 really doesn't have anything to do with these 2 methods. It was just that's just for styling. The name of the app just happens to be app. I mean, the 2 coincide. So I can see maybe there might be a small confusion there or building the context, okay? So now that we have this, now that I have, or now that I know that this is the case, the other way that you might see this done now, personally, for the most part, and under certain conditions, we're going to try to go this route as often as we can. Truly, as often as we can, we're going to do this. There are going to be times when we can't do that, when we actually need to pass that method values, okay? Passing it values as well as binding it in a different way, we could go this other option. So I'm just going to show the other option. So here's handle sub. So we can put a fat arrow in here, and then I can call the thing. And let's test this thing out. I'm going to go here. I'm going to make sure everything works. Console's cleared. Plus works. Minus works. Everything seems to work. And even handle clicks up. I'm going to put this here as well so we can see that. All right. And now that works as well. Okay. Both are ways of binding that method to the class itself. Those are 2 examples of doing the binding. Okay, fat arrow. So when I say it needs to be bound, you can do this done either using fat arrow when creating the method. Done using fat arrow, an anonymous function, a anon fat arrow in the click event. Okay, those are the 2 ways. There's a third way too. As you can imagine, there's another way of doing this. The other way is kind of on its way out, being that these are the 2 other ways of doing it. I almost write them all like this, but if I have to pass values, I do it like this. If I want to pass something there, I would do it like that. One of the things that you might need to pass, and we will be passing it later, is the actual event that occurred, right? I'm clicking on something. That's an event. All right, well, what if I want to take a look at the event? Well, I have to pass the event, and let's just see if I can console log. This is event. Let me see if this works. Minus, oh, what did I get? Oh, because I didn't pass it here. Bloop, 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 bloop. All right, there we go. Warning, why is this erroring? Why is it screaming at me now? Standard is reused and the performance using, you've seen this, you're using the property native or been release. Interesting. Surprised that's happening. Handle this event sub, and the click sub. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that. Let me go back. I have another use case for that. I'm not sure why it's not working, but we'll take a look at it in a little bit. Okay, so that's how we add events. Click 2 click events, and then this is how we can bind them. Either bind it like this, or we bind it like this. Okay, Two different ways of doing it. Any questions? Feeling good with adding the events, right? Not too hard, not too difficult. Okay.
Is there any reason ever not to use fat arrow for this?
This fat arrow? I would say I can't really see a reason not to use it. And when we're doing it this way, we're doing it to pass values to it. Okay, so when you do it, when you do run it like this on click, I can pass values to the, oh, did I? Yeah, not really sure why that didn't work with the E though. But we can pass values to it. So the reason why we would do this solely is to pass values, but the reason why I would do it like this is so that I don't have to write the function like this, or I didn't have to do it in another way. There's another way that we bind. So for the most part, you're going to see it written kind of like this nowadays, unless somebody's already written the method like this and they're like, oh, I already wrote it like this, so I'm just going to write it like this. Once again, all depends on who's writing the code, okay? But best practices is to keep everything on par with your team, whatever your team decided to do. If your team decides to write it like this, then that's how you write it. And all of your methods across all of your classes get written just like that. Okay, if they decide to do it like this, then they're either going to make the decision to write them like this or do it a third way. Okay, and the third way would have been to bind it. I'm just going to add it here, but you're not really going to be doing this, but you will see it. We would probably done something like handle click sub is equal to this dot handle click sub dot bind this. Let me see. I think it may, yeah. This is the other way of doing it. Okay. So obviously we already did this. So if I get rid of this and I just put this dot handle click sub, I just put that in there. And now I have this written like that. And I go back here, and I click on the minus. Look, it works and I get app. That's the third way. This is the third construct that you would use to bind. Now, the reason why I said bind, and I'm just going to write it like that, needs to be bound, right? I use that keyword bound, is because the bind keyword is how we almost always did it before. So you're going to see a lot of classes where they bind the methods at the very top. So if you're, bind is an advanced thing in JavaScript. Even when we teach it in the software engineering, we don't always get to bind, apply, call, and bind. These are just kind of advanced concepts in JavaScript. You don't use them very often, but it's about taking an object and passing that object into this function and taking the values and kind of binding to the what's inside of the function. If that makes any sense. I'm not going to leave it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. It's not how I want to write it. I want to keep it in this context, okay? Only because this is something we're going to be using later on also, okay? Any other questions? Go once. Question time. All right. We got our heads wrapped around adding it, right? Awesome. So I'm going to go now to the color switcher, right? Our most amazing color switcher app. And I'll share this out. All right. So what you're going to see is this particular color switcher is one single component. Okay. I'm trying to simplify this thing now so that we don't have to do anything with lifting state at all, which is really what I'm aiming for here. So if everything is in one component, then we can like work our magic within the thing without worrying about passing things between things, which is a whole nother kind of ballgame. Lifting state is like a whole class. We'll do that all together in the next class. So for you, I want to do the same thing. So where does it look like the most practical place to like add a click event, right? Well, the submit looks like a pretty, the button looks like a pretty good button to like click on and add something, right? So I'm going to go to the button itself, and I'll just do the on click. Okay. And here I'll say handle click. Okay. There's only really one thing. I mean, these circles would be clickable, but that's later on. Now, this is screaming at me because there is no handle click. So I'm going to go here and do a const handle click is equal to fat arrow. And we should get rid of the error message, right? Okay. I'm going to test that the button works. Console log handle click has been clicked, right? Just want to make sure. No point in like moving forward if the things that we set aren't working. So here we go. Boom. Handle click has been clicked. Okay. Awesome. Tested the button worked. We knew that handle submit works. Okay. One of the other events that I want to show now also is this. The click, pretty basic. Just take a look at on submit. Oh, I don't think we're going to get to that one just yet. Let's go switch here. Okay. Is this? Can you run this required? Handle submit. All right. The other type of method that I want to add is a submit method. Okay. We have a form. And forms have a purpose in HTML, right? You fill out the form, I submit the form, and there's a good chance that the form either clears itself out, right, or it takes me someplace else. So think back in the Wayback Machine of HTML came out, it was like basic things like forms, like have them submit it, clear out the page, refresh the page, and it worked back then because that's how you cleared out the form, right? We don't necessarily want to clear out the form, or we do, but we want to take that on control. And the last thing we want to do is have the page refresh. That's like the no-no. Don't want to have the page refresh. So I'm going to go here to the form. I'm going to add another type of event. It's called on submit. Same thing, curly brace, and I'm going to call it handle submit, right? Now, it's screaming at me because handle submit doesn't exist. So let's go const handle submit, fat arrow, boom. Okay. So here we go. We got our handle submit, and I'm going to console log handle submit has been clicked. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. If I click on the submit button, look, I get two things. Oh, did it refresh? Watch. I don't know why this message. Watch this box here refreshes, right? If you look really quickly down here, you're actually going to see both of those things being generated, both of those messages. It happens really quickly. Oh, handle click, and then it's gone. Why is that? Does anyone know what's causing that? What we might need to prevent the default behavior?
You need prevent default.
Yeah, prevent default, right? So it's on the submit that we're doing this, right? So if I went up here, I'm just going to try it. If I just put E here without passing anything in there, and I was like, all right, E dot prevent default. Let's just test this out. Okay, if I click, look, it works. You see that? It stopped. I'll do it again. Submit. It worked. I'm also going to do this. I'm going to click inside the field and just hit enter. Look, it worked. Both of them worked. Okay. Handle click has been clicked and handle submit has been clicked. They both have been clicked, right? Even though I only clicked on one, I didn't touch the button, touch the form. Doing submit seems to trigger the click event also. In the
What's
end,
submitting this?
what's that?
What's submitting this? That's a button. It's not a submit.
Oh, because it's wrapped in a form. Now, when you have a form, the form can be triggered for submission on an on-submit event when you hit enter in the field, or you click on a button inside of the form itself. Okay,
So
because
does it
if
have to be a submit?
well, this on submit is the event. On submit is the submit event. This is the synthetic event that we're using here. So if I got rid of, watch this, if I get rid of the on click, let's just get rid of it. We don't really need the on click there. I just put it there like that's our pivot from before, right? So I have the on click. If I just go here and I do this, look, it happens, right? Clicking on the button happens again. Get rid of it. Submit, submit. They both trigger. So any form that has a button, if the form has a submit event, then the form is looking for or listening for the enter button or a submit button or any other button. It doesn't have to be called submit. It could be called pickles. Doesn't matter. It's a button. It's in the thing. You click on it. That's how you submit it. Okay? So now that we know that, and we know that the default behavior was to do this, right? Event prevent default triggered the thing to execute. Okay? So I wonder if, I'm just going to quickly go back because I want to see if I can demo the stop propagation thing also. I'm just curious if I can do this. Handle, on click is equal to handle click. Let's just see this. Oh, what did I do wrong? Handle click, handle submit.
Capital L.
Oh yeah, capital L. Good looking up. All right. I want to see, because what we saw here when I clicked on this, it triggered both. Handle click has been and handle submit has been. So I'm going to go to handle click. I want to see if I just do this and say e.stop propagation. Let me see if this works. So if I click on this, it's been clicked. Looks like it stops it, but I get this other error. E.stop is not a function. Stop propagation. Stop propagation. I think it's because propagation, right? I think that's how we spell it. All right. Not sure why. Because we are passing E. I think E. What's that?
I think it's an A after the second P. Propagation.
Oh, yeah.
Propagation.
Propagation, all right? There we go. Propagation. There we go. Stat didn't work. I thought maybe I could stop it from propagating. I have another example for that. I just thought I'd test this out. All right. All right. So now we saw submit form and how we would handle that and the importance of the event prevents, the E.prevent default. The E is just a shorthand for event, okay? Whatever happened was an event. And the event, if we wanted to console log the event, you know, I guess we should do that. Just console log E, you would see that on submits, we have, oh, I'm not sure why this is happening, synthetic event, all of this, synthetic events, all of the information about the particular event. We can take a look at the targets, null, all of this is part of the event. So finding things like your X and Y coordinates is something we could find if we wanted to also, okay? Not sure I got all those errors. All right. I'm going to go back to upgrading this component. We have our functional component. I'm going to go and upgrade it one more time, okay? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say class app extends react dot component. Now, because I didn't put component up here, right? So I have to use that keyword. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to add the render method. Okay, I'm going to go here, add the render method. Just going to move this over a little bit. All right. I have to get rid of the const keywords. And I have to change handle submit to this, handle click to this. All right. Now everything's back to normal. Right? If I do submit, everything still should work. Click, handle click. Submit, well, I think we got rid of the handle click, did we? No, handle submit. And if I submit, look, handle submit and handle click, both have been clicked. We don't really care about the submit. I'm just leaving it there because once again, we just learned click events. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Any questions so far? No real magic has happened here yet. They'll have to capture, type in the value and capture it, but I want to make sure we're on par with this.
So one thing I noticed is that E is being passed into the method, but it's not being passed in when you're putting it into the onClick or onSubmit event. Is that just magic?
Oh, do you mean if I go here and I just console log event the keyword?
No, I'm saying in the render, when you put onSubmit is equal to this.handle submit,
Oh,
you're
yes.
not passing the event in there, but it's
Yes.
still somehow being passed in, and it's just magic or something.
Yeah, it's just like the magic. That's the best that I could say. Let me just see. I don't think if I do add the E here and I have handle submit, right? I want to see, it does error out. Synthetic event reviews the performance. I don't know why it's telling me this, but I think for the handle submit, let me think. Let me just see. I think I got to do this. Let me see if this works. Is it still erroring out? Not sure what.
That looks like it's just a warning. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a warning. So that event is used for performance reasons. If it is, you're accessing the native element synthetic event. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Still logging E?
Yeah, here's the synthetic event. So if I clear this out and I do this again, I go to the very top, I see synthetic event. It is logging it. It is being passed in. I am giving it the event, and it is console logging it. I just don't know why this warning is popping up right now. Okay. Yeah, so this E could be passed under the hood or put placeholders for it if you really want to get it through. Okay. There's two things that do get kind of passed under the hood sometimes. This, which is accessible because of the bleeding out of this in a fat arrow, and event. Event is also something, if we were just writing like jQuery or plain JavaScript and we didn't pass in anything, we still have access to the event. It's just something that is being passed under the hood because it knows it's an event and it's passing it. Just one of those things. Cool?
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's do this. Why don't we take a break? It's 8:55. Why don't we take our 10-minute break? We'll come back. We'll jump into a lab, get your hands working, and then, yeah, we'll review and then jump on to the next topic. Cool? All right, 8:55, 9:05. Come back at 9:05. 9:05. Break time. Come back at 9:05.
Hey, Joe, before you jump off, do you mind just scrolling down a little bit? I think I just have a syntax error, and I just want to see.
Sure. Is this good?
Thank you. Yeah, that should be perfect. Thanks.
I also slacked it out too. So if you open up what I have, I mean, you would have opened it up, probably forked it. But if you open up the original one that I slacked out earlier, you will see all the code. So you could do like a side-by-side comparison and compare the two also. Cool. I'm just going to jump off. I'll still be here. I'm just going to jump off video and mute myself, but I'll still be here.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. So, everyone back. On submit. Here we go. Code sandbox. Like this out. I will collapse this list. All right, here we go. Slack it out. Okay. There's the code sandbox. And the instructions for the lab are in the lab, adding events, submit. This is what I want you to do. Just open up that code sandbox. So here it is. It's one component. I'm just setting it up as one component this time. We do have a form right here. We have a create button. Okay. We have props being passed down for the title. Just want to point that out also. So what I want you to do for this is add an on-click event to the create button that calls a function called handle click. Inside the handle click function, just have a console log, this is handle click, test that it works. Okay, then add an on submit event to the form element that calls a function called handle submit. Create the handle submit function, have a console log, this is handle submit. Inside handle submit, add the e.prevent default. Okay, then upgrade the app component to a class-based component. And just keep in mind those things that you need to do in order to do this upgrade. So I'm trying to combine what we've learned in the past and add just a little bit. So I want to make sure that you're able to look at things and troubleshoot any errors as you hit them. Okay? Any questions? Any questions on it? So let's see. Stephen, if I said, how long do you think it would take? How long do you think it would take you to do that?
15 minutes?
15 minutes? Okay. Ramona, you agree? 15 minutes?
Yeah, I agree. 15.
You agree? All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'll give you 15 minutes, and I'll add a, I'm going to add a poll just to be like, done with part 1, done with part 2 kind of thing, just so I can get a feel of what's going on. So I'll set the timer, 15 minutes, and you're off, and I'll add in the Slack channel a poll. And so as you complete the thing, just click on the poll. Okay, done. All right. All right, that's good. Looks like there's not it. All right. Yeah, I slacked out the poll, so as you bang them out, just click on part 1, part 2. You can do it sooner than 15 minutes.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
So when I just console log event on the handle submit, it backfires a warning, but it still accepts the event.prevent default, and
Yeah.
I figured it might console out event as well, but it backfires a warning, and I was wondering why.
I don't know why it's giving us the warning about the event. It's like some sort of, I have to take a look and see why it's giving that.
Mm-hmm.
Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure. It's just a warning, so it works, but I'm going to take a look and see why that is. Okay, looks like yeah, for those that have completed up to part 3, I think you did it in pretty good time. I did slack out or provide those bonuses. I don't know if you've been working on them. So in the meantime, until everyone's just kind of caught up, work on the bonuses. So if you complete all this, work on the bonus assignments that I had slacked out. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. It was being logged. It's just all those additional errors, and I'm not really sure why they're popping up.
Yep.
Yeah. If you are done and you were looking for those kind of bonuses, they were in that Tuesday's homework right here. So these 2 code pens, and the idea was to convert them over. One's like a traffic light. The other is like a city pick. So you click on an image and it should change the image of the big one, the big box. So the functionalities, click on this and these should change. And on this one, oh, are they both the same? Yeah. And on this one, if I click on these images, this image should reflect which one I'm clicking on. So if you can figure out the HTML, package it as an array, pass it through, loop over, how would you restructure this without me giving you clear guidelines on what to do? How would you do that? Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Joe,
Yeah.
for the bonuses, am I to use the vanilla JavaScript or the?
Oh, for these?
Yeah.
So what you would be doing is we don't want just plain JavaScript. I want you to open up a code sandbox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't want you to do it here. I only have the HTML here, so I didn't have
okay.
copy. I do a lot of stuff in CodePens too with some of the other classes. So if you took a look at this and you know how you could easily convert that into a React component, right? You just copy and paste the HTML and it's there. But how would you restructure it to like create an object, create an array of objects that contain, or an array that contains the images? How would you structure the app? Would you create subcomponents for the image, for the big box? Like, how would you structure that?
Got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Resume recording. Okay. So here's a to-do list. Once again, why those synthetic warnings were happening earlier, I don't know, because they're not happening here. It's just kind of a weird thing. All you needed to do was, once again, kind of emulate what we did earlier, not trying to like go way outside of the scope of what we've done. I turned it into a class. Have a handle submit and a handle click method, right? Handle submit as event prevent default, or prevent default. And I add an on submit, this dot handle submit, and an on click, right? That's really it. And then if I click here, I get the events. If I click create, I get it. And I don't get the synthetic events, which is just kind of weird. I don't know why those synthetic warnings. Megan slacked out an article that said that you could use e.persist method to end that. So
you're not getting the warnings because you're not trying to log e.
I think it's when you try to access properties or values inside E.
Oh, is that it?
If you try and log e in a console log statement, you should get those warnings.
Oh, is that where they're coming from? Okay. Let me see. We'll submit. Yeah, that was the whole time. All right. Okay. When I'm working with the Create React app, which I do with the day class predominantly, and we do it with the day class, with the engineering class, because I'm on site and it's easier to walk over to troubleshoot. The reason why I use the code sandbox is because we're remote. If you have an issue, you can Slack me. I know what the problem is and I can like take a look at it. So when I've been doing this with Create React App, I haven't seen that error. So I just found it odd that was it. I've taught in class and done it. So maybe it's a thing with just the code sandbox. I'm not sure. All right. So we're good with that, right? That's really all you had to do. We didn't really have to do anything more than just that. All right. So the next things that I want to cover here are adding refs and updating state. So there's two ways. The one thing that we do see with I'll go back to this color switcher, that ultimately what we want to do is capture when somebody types something in, right? It is a form and we want to capture it. Now there's two ways to capture the data. One way is to add a reference to that component. Now remember, we want React to always be interacting with these elements, right? We don't want to be like document dot get the thing by we don't ever want to be calling document if we don't have to, and we really don't want to have to. But so what we can do, what React provides us, is the ability to add a reference to an element and or another event that would allow us to capture every keystroke that's being typed. Okay. I want to hold off on the every keystroke just because we only have so much time left. So I want to do the ref because the ref is, to me, just a little bit more terse in our ability to capture what's being typed in here. So I'm going to create a ref. And a ref is just a reference. It's a reference to an element on the page. So I'm going to say input, because that's what I'm going to be, I want to call it input, is equal to react.createRef. Okay? So I'm creating this reference. Okay? Now, as I do this, we're going to talk about refs. I just kind of want to maybe go back to the lecture here, take a look at adding refs. Did I add the refs here? No. I think I added it as homework to read for controlled and uncontrolled forms. So forms. I'm just going to the React docs to take a look at adding the refs, because they do they add the refs here? Controlled. Let me see, refs. Refs. Here we go. Create ref. So I just want you to see when we're doing it, react.createRef is the method to do it. Okay? So let's go back. So I have the method here. I want to create the ref. Now I want to associate that ref with the input. Okay? I mean, we're submitting the form, but when I submit the form, I need to grab the value from the input. Okay? So when I grab the value from the input, excuse me, I want to grab it. So I'm going to find the input. Here's the input. And I'm going to add the ref. So when we add the ref, we say, what am I going to say here? We're going to say this.input. This.input. Okay. And it's ref is equal to this.input. Okay. So I've added that reference to this input field. Okay. We created the reference up here, input, and we reference it as this.input, right? Just like we reference handle click as this.handle click, or handle submit and handle click. Both of them have this before it. We have to look up and come back down. So by doing this.input means we would go back up, look at React create ref. It looks through all the things that have refs and kind of aggregates those things together. Okay? So now that I have this, inside handle submit is where I want to access that reference. So I'm going to go here. We know I'm going to get rid of this error because we already know that that's going to trip. And I'm going to say console log because I want to see this is the input ref. Okay, it's the input ref. This dot input dot current dot value. That's how I access the value inside of here. So I'm going to test this out. I'm just going to type color red, submit, and if you can see here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see here I was able to get this is the input ref, and I typed in the color red. If I get rid of this, I can type in blue, submit, and I get this is the input ref, and it's blue now. Okay? I'm going to get rid of maybe the value. I just want to see what this thing is. All right? This is the ref, and it grabbed the input. So what it's doing is it's referencing that thing. It returns back the whole thing. The current element is this. Okay? So if I do this, I can grab the whole element, and then if I want its value, I just type in dot value. Okay? Do that. If you worked with like jQuery, it's the same thing. You grab the thing, you do dot value, and then you get the value, or dot val, and I would have gotten the value. Now that I have this, I have the thing, I want to push it into state, right? The idea would be ultimately to add the thing here, right? We're probably not going to get to adding it here, but let's take a look at state, because now that I have this thing, I need to add state. All right, well, how do I add state? State, right? That's really it. So state is this keyword, just like input was this keyword. And state is an object. Objects are key value pairs. So I want to create a key value pair that reference that ultimately I will have more than one color, right? We didn't construct it this way. We're not passing down an array of colors to build this out, but we could. And I could, as an additional lab, have you create a function that creates the looping and does the thing within here, and we might even be able to get to that. but let's just say I'm going to create a colors array. Okay? Colors, and I'm going to push my colors as people type them in and push them into this colors array, right? Okay. In handle submits, I need to update state. So here we go. We need to update state with the user's input. And we do that by calling this dot set state. Okay? We call, I always put prev state here. And I do that because I want you to get used to using or have prev state there as a placeholder, even if you didn't use it. For now, just write it. We don't need to write it. The other way that we could write this dot set state is this dot set state and just pass in the object. I can't leave both of these here, so I'm just going to comment this out. This is the simplistic way of doing it where I don't reference prev state. This is where I want to reference the previous state that exists. Okay, ultimately what we need to do is rewrite everything that's in this array. Like when we assign colors a new value, we need to like rewrite the array that has the old values. Okay, so what we want to do is reference the colors, right? That's what we want to reference here. And if we had colors in here, let's just say I add blue. I'm just going to add the color blue. And then here, if we wanted to push the new color, I could say this dot input dot current dot value, right? Could do that, right? And it would push the color. But are we going to have the color blue in there too? Will that stick around? No, right? Because we're writing a new array to the colors key. We got rid of the old colors. Now, how can we validate this? I want to do this. I want to show you how state is this kind of queuing mechanism, right? So let's do this. Console log. This is state before this dot state. Okay. And I want to console log. This is state after. Okay. So now we know. Awesome. Let's go here. All right. Well, there's one element. This looks kind of like they could be the same. That's blue. And that's blue. But wait. Didn't we just update it? I thought I saw the thing get updated, right? Could have sworn it updated it. Doesn't look like it updated it. So I'm going to do this also. I want you to see something. I'm going to go to the render method and say this is state in render. Okay? So let's get some context. Look, this is state in render, and I have blue because when this component loads for the first time, blue is the only thing in state. Okay? I am now going to type in red. I'm going to hit enter. So now we have a few things that happen, right? Okay. This is render, the original render. This is before blue. This is after blue. And this is the second time that render has been called. And look, render is red. Okay? Now the reason is because this takes a while to run. Okay? This set state takes a split second longer to run, and so the console log is like, I just got to go. I got to do my thing. I'm just going to run, and state hasn't yet been updated by the time that thing runs. Okay, so what I want you to see is state is this queuing mechanism, and it's not on your time. It's on React's time. React's like, I need a minute longer to do this. If you wanted to confirm that state has been updated using set state, we can add another callback here. I could do this. Now, I'm just going to put this inside of here. So this callback here states, let set state run. When set state completes, call the callback. Do the thing later. So this is like set state's way of like sequencing the events. Do the thing. When I'm done with the thing, do the other thing. So let's take a look now. Okay. I'm going to get rid of some of those other console logs. This button has been clicked. All right. Let's just do it. What the hell? Go here. Red. Boom. All right. So we know that is it render? Okay. Before was blue, and in render it's red, and then after is also red. So we kind of piecemealed it, right?
Well,
This
in
is
render gets called after, before, after.
this render. You know, it. I don't think it updated yet. Let me say, because render should have. This button has been clicked. I'm just going to get rid of the button message. Handle submit. I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of this button. I just want to clear out all the messages here. All right, let's do this. I'm going to run this again. I'm just going to refresh it, let it run. Let's see what we get. We should get the render. Right? All right, here we go. Render. First time it runs. I don't know what the source map is. And I have blue. Awesome. Okay? I'm going to go here. I'm going to add red. I'm going to get rid of all these messages. Run it. All right. Ref. This is state before. It's blue. Okay. And that is here, right? Okay. Now we've updated state. So look, before, then render gets triggered, right? Because we just updated state. State causes a what?
Re-render.
Re-render. So render happens. Boom. And it's red. And then after is obviously red. Okay? A change of state causes a re-render. So what I want you to see too is like the re-render happens before the callback to set state. Okay? That's important to know, right? The sequence of events. Now, one of the issues here is what? We lost our color, our previous color of blue, right? How do I get the previous color of blue back? Anyone remember what the operator's called?
Play.
Dot, 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 prev state, dot, colors, right? What's that called again? The
Spread.
Play.
spread operator, right? It's spreading open the previous array, grabbing all the elements, adding it to this new array, and then appending the new element to the array. Okay, so this is the ES6 way of doing it. You're going to see this done quite often. And so now, if we go back here, and we do this, once again, render, one color blue, red. Now I have two colors, and two colors in render, and two colors in after. Okay, they're both there. Okay, and so we're able to update state and grab this value from there. Okay, and ultimately what we'd want to do is get rid of the color in there. The person submitted the thing. We probably don't want to see that value in there. So we probably want to do something like this. I think this is where we do it. Maybe this dot input. I think we could do this dot current dot value is equal to, let me see, can we reset this? It's red. Look, I just reset it. I cleared out the form. The fact that we're not allowing the page to refresh because we're using event prevent default is the reason why I need to make sure that the value is gone. I'm just going to make sure there's no errors, right? No errors. Let's get this source map. I'm not sure what that is. Let me do red again. Boom. It works. It's even putting additional red in. Okay? I'm clearing out the value in the form because I don't want the user to see red there and have to like wipe out red to type in blue or wipe out blue to type in green again, right? It's not a pleasurable experience for the user. So we want to stay focused on helping the user have a good experience, okay? Is that good? Feeling good? Like what we're about to try? All right. So, it's your turn. lab. Here we go. So for the lab, I want you to do the same thing with the to-do list. I want you to add a new React ref called input, assign the ref to the input element, and in the handle submit method, console log the value of the input, okay? And then add state to the app and configure with a key value pair of to-dos set to an empty array. And in the handle submit method, update state to include the new to-do item stored in this.input.current.value, okay? And in the second callback function, I want to make sure that the thing has been added. If you want to add console logs and render, by all means, add them there as well, okay? If you weren't able to complete this earlier, I'll slack that out. I have the solution to the previous lab. I just slacked it out. So if you didn't do it, there it is. And I'm going to say, I think it's probably only going to take about 10 minutes. It really wasn't, I don't think it's going to take longer than 10 minutes. Set 10 minutes. We're only doing a handful of things. I think maybe less things than we did earlier, okay? You have this as a reference too, right? You have color switcher as your reference. I will leave the color switcher here so you can see what's going on, okay? So if there's any like, what did we do? Not really sure. You have this as a reference, kind of like repeat. This is kind of like a rinse and repeat, okay? I'm gonna jump off a video and mute myself, but I'll be here. If you need some help, just call me. I'll jump back online. I also added the thumbs up, too. So when you're done, just click on the thumbs up. All right, so that was 10 minutes. I'm only seeing 4 clicks. Anyone else? Anyone else want to click on the thumbs up? 5, okay. 6, that's good. Because once again, I use this to kind of evaluate. If you struggled with it, you didn't get it done, I kind of want to know, hey, maybe this one should have been 15 minutes and the other one should have been 10. I don't know. The fact that I kind of put the code out here and it's just kind of like do the thing that we just did almost seems like it should be easier than maybe I think it should be. I'm not sure. But all right, let me go just take a look at it. I added the ref, right? So this is how we create a reference to something. It's the same thing I did in, to-do list, right? Here we go, to-do. It's in the color switcher. I create the reference. All right, create the reference. While I was at it, I created the state as well. You know, can create the things. I created the state. You could follow the process too. And then I added that reference here. You know, ref is equal to this. Just pointing back to the thing that I want to reference. Okay. And then in state, here in handle submit, I added state, right? Here was state. I added the thing that was typed in, and I made sure to add the previous to-dos. There weren't any previous to-dos. I didn't ask you to do, but you might have said, hey, let me test something out and make sure. So I went up and I just added a to-do to confirm that this works. If there's nothing there, you're not going to get anything. But, you know, if you keep typing things in, another thing, then it's going to keep adding them. So now I have 3 things. So the state is going to keep going and it's going to keep updating. I just wanted to start with something. And then in the callback, this was the callback, I wanted to just see the state of state, see if I could console log state and make sure that it was updated. Right? You could have done that in render too, right? If I go to render and do it, I'll see that the thing has been updated in state also. But this is just kind of like a pausing mechanism to say, hey, when it's done, do this other thing too, whatever that other thing is. Okay. I want to show you, I don't really use the callback too often, but I want to show you that state is more than just, hey, this object, we have prev state. We can even pass in props to this thing too. We could pass props as a parameter. As an argument, I don't really do that too often as well, but we could do that. All right. I just wanted to show that. Cool. Any questions? I don't know if anyone did the challenge to just try to like loop through the things. Anyone try to do that? Pass in the array of things. All right. There's always something to do. Let's put it that way. If you're like, I did the thing, I don't know what to do, look at it and ask yourself how you would reconstruct it to match what we've been doing. And I only suggest that because you're going to have to do a final project at some point in time, right? And that final project, I'm not going to be able to like tell you what to do. You're going to construct the thing yourself. So I just want you to always be thinking about how you would do it, how you would take something and restructure it. What do you want to call the things? Awesome.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like with set state, if it runs on itself, it's asynchronous. How do I might have like code right after it that relies on an updated state, and outside of callback, really, is there a way to really?
Well, I mean, in render you could do it. The thing with set state though too is, if I was to go in here and do anything where I set state inside of render, I would have a perpetual loop. Right? Because setting state causes a re-render. If I'm in the render and I set state, it causes a re-render. It's a perpetual loop. So, I mean, after you've set state, if you wanted to do something, well, then you'd have to do it here. Maybe there is like set state and then evaluate something. Okay? And I guess it would be context. What are you trying to do? Like, if there was context and I'm trying to accomplish this, then I could provide a better solution. So a lot of the times when I get kind of generalized questions, if I wanted to do it, I'm sure we could figure out the way. But if you provide more of a concrete, I did this thing and then I want to do this other thing, then I can give you the best solution possible. But if you updated state, then you want to see that state change reflected in the UI. Like that's the goal, right? I made a change, I updated state, I don't want to see that state change in the UI. If you want to then do something after state change, I'm just trying to think of context. Like, what do we do after state has changed? What is there left to do? I don't know, maybe send an email or something, right? Then you could, whatever it is, if you imported the right module into React that could send an email, then you could do it here and say, hey, state was changed or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you don't have to think of it now, but if you're at work and you're like, oh, this is what I would meant, shoot me a Slack and, me, Abdul, can take a look at it and try to answer it, give you more context. Okay. Any other questions? We got questions. All right. No questions. All right. I'm going to quickly go over the homework here. You're going to be doing part 2 of the React Films. So React Films is pretty like, do the thing, type the thing. You can't really get lost here. Now, with React Films, the first one expected that you did everything as a class component. I kind of suggested you don't write everything as class, do it as function, just to get the practice of upgrading that. Okay, so there will be some keywords in here like add to your render method. And you're like, but I don't have a render method. I have a return because it's a functional component. Just be aware of that. If you, in the doc here, what I've done is, oh, wait a second, where's the homework? Homework, I haven't already completed. I linked you for, all right. So here, I just wanted to go here. Obviously, this is where you're going to be adding your homework. So I'm just going to go to the homework tab. All right. In the homework tab, I've added a link here to the previous solution that I provided for this, where everything is a functional component except for app, which is a class-based. I know some of you did everything as class-based. That's fine. That'll work. But if you did them as functional components, this one is all functional components. If you just want to test yourself. I've also added a link to this React architecture drawing. What I'd like you to do is fork or copy this file and use this color coding scheme to match your design. If this is a class-based, then color it green. If they're not, then color them as this kind of light purple. And then we're going to use this as we build out our architecture and add a few more things to this. In app, if there's state, we're going to keep track of what's in state. We're going to keep track of what state is passing down to these elements. Okay, we're going to use this as a visual display. And trust me, this is really going to help. I had my day class building out a React app, and they're using this, and it's really helping them to understand what's being passed around. Because it can get very confusing after a while, especially when you add React Router and everything. It can be kind of confusing. So what I'd like you to do is just copy that, make your changes, and then just add the link here. Add your solution to the films part 2, okay? Just add the link there. And then just some reading. There's a reading, go to the React docs for forms, and then something on controlled and uncontrolled inputs. For the uncontrolled, right here is where you would add a ref, okay? There's an old way of doing it, but you can see the keyword ref. This is the old way of doing refs. I just want you to understand that because we will be getting into the controlled way of doing it, which is adding another event, an on-change event, okay? So if you just read that, you can also go to the docs too, okay? Outside of that, just exit tickets. I know I said I was going to leave time, but 2 hours just happens to like go by super, super duper quick. And if you have any questions, just reach out during the week. Once again, Slack me your code sandbox. I gladly take a look at it when I have a moment. Okay. Any final goodbyes? So long questions.
Oh. We just send the solution on the Slack.
Oh, for what we just did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sure thing. I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna add this solution also into the Trello board. So here I have adding events. I'm going to put this also in here. So we have the solution code. So if you ever like, you couldn't make it to class, I want you to be able to be like, oh, here's the solution. But solution's there, and I will Slack it out also. Okay. There you go. If you have any issues with that, once again, you can Slack me.
Thank you.
All right, I'll post the recording probably first thing in the morning. It takes like, 30, 40 minutes for the thing to like compile itself. And then I get up and I'll Slack it out. Okay.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Sweet. Okay. So enjoy. And I'll catch you on Tuesday.
All right. Thank
All right,
you.
thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.